The issue did not begin as a headline. It began as a structure. The Priority Development Assistance Fund functioned for years within the national budget as a routine mechanism. Funds were allocated. Projects were identified. Documents moved through layers of approval and implementation. At this stage, the system remained largely procedural, visible within institutions, but not central to public attention. What changed was not the existence of the system, but how it was seen. Reports and whistleblower accounts began to describe patterns in how funds were being directed. These accounts were supported by documentation that would later become central to formal investigations. Details that had once existed within paperwork began to move outward, from documents to discussion, from discussion to scrutiny. The issue entered national attention when these findings were amplified through reporting and inquiry. What had been contained within folders was now placed under examination. Legislative hearings followed. Audit findings were revisited. The scope expanded beyond isolated cases into questions about the system itself. At its peak, the issue became unavoidable. It was no longer confined to institutional processes. It was visible, discussed, interpreted as a broader question of accountability. For a time, it occupied the center of national attention. But attention does not remain fixed. As new events emerged, the spotlight began to shift. Other issues entered the frame. The focus moved forward, and what had once been fully illuminated began to recede. Not because it had concluded, but because something else had taken its place. When the spotlight moved away, the issue did not pause. It changed environments, from visibility to process. The single issue that once occupied public attention began to separate into multiple cases, each one defined by its own documents, its own evidence, its own procedural path. These cases entered the jurisdiction of the Sandiganbayan. From that point forward, movement was no longer measured in headlines, but in filings, arraignments, pretrial stages, trial proceedings. Each step required documentation. Each document required review, and each review added time. What had once appeared as a single national issue became a network of legal tracks. Some moved forward more quickly. Others slowed under the weight of procedure. Some required additional filings. Others were returned for further consideration. Parallel to this, audit findings earlier identified during the height of the issue continued to be referenced and examined within these proceedings. The system did not move as one. It moved case by case, and because each case followed its own path, the overall movement became difficult to see from the outside. There was no single timeline, no unified pace. Only overlapping processes, occurring simultaneously, within institutions designed to move deliberately. In this environment, progress becomes granular, measured not in conclusions, but in steps. And these steps, while continuous, are rarely return to the level of visibility that once defined the issue. After years inside the system, outcomes began to emerge, but not as a single conclusion. Instead, they appeared in fragments. In certain cases, decisions were issued by the Sandiganbayan. Among the most widely reported outcomes were convictions connected to the misuse of public funds. The case of Janet Limnapples became one of the most visible examples, serving as a reference point for how portions of the system reached resolution. In separate proceedings, other individuals, including public officials, faced different outcomes. Some were convicted, some were acquitted. Each decision depended on the specific case, the evidence presented, and the stage at which the case was evaluated. At the same time, not all cases reached final resolution. Several continued through extended trial timelines. Others progressed into appellate review within institutions such as the Supreme Court of the Philippines. This creates a structure that resists simplification. There is no single endpoint that defines the issue. What remains is not a clear conclusion, but a layered record, one that exists within institutions, but only partially within public memory. While these processes continued, something else moved, not within the system, but above it. Attention shifted. New issues entered the frame. New headlines formed, and with each new headline, the focus adjusted. The spotlight followed what was current, not what was ongoing. The earlier issue did not need to conclude for this shift to occur. It only needed to be displaced. This is the structure of the headline cycle. It does not wait for resolution. It moves with sequence. As attention moves forward, earlier issues remain, but in reduced visibility, still present within institutions, still moving through process, but no longer occupying the center of awareness. And once visibility declines, continuity becomes harder to observe, not because it stops, but because it is no longer being followed. The pork barrel cases did not disappear. They continued, within documents, within hearings, within decisions recorded over time. But they continued in a space that operates differently from public attention. A space where progress is incremental, where outcomes are distributed, where resolution is not presented as a single moment, but as a collection of developments. This creates a separation between what continues and what is seen. Over time, that separation widens, until the issue changes form from something actively followed into something passively stored, not absent, not resolved, but no longer visible in the same way. And when visibility becomes partial, understanding becomes fragmented. What remains is not a clear ending, but a record, one that exists, one that can be accessed, but one that is no longer consistently observed. That is where unresolved issues remain, not outside the system, but inside it. Not where nothing is happening, but where everything continues, without being seen.